The emergency lights in the grand chamber flickered with an anxious rhythm that matched the mood of every being present. Zixtor stood at the center podium, his tall frame hunched with worry. His skin, normally a calm blue, pulsed with nervous orange streaks. Around him sat representatives from 47 different species, and every single one of them looked afraid. 3 months, Zixtor said, his voice carrying through the vast chamber. 3 months of complete silence. The humans have shut every door. They recall every ambassador. They close every trade route. They respond to nothing. A chittering sound came from the Kelthara section. Chitek, the insectoid diplomat, clicked his mandibles together. They are children throwing a tantrum. They will return when they need our resources. This is meaningless posturing. But the data screens told a different story. Intelligence reports scrolled across holographic displays, each one more alarming than the last. Human military construction had increased by 300%. Entire fleets had vanished from their usual patrol routes. Border stations along human space reported nothing but automated warnings on repeat. Zixtor remembered the day it all changed. 6 months ago, a human colony ship called the Frontier Spirit had been destroyed near Kelthara space. 200 humans died in an instant. Men, women, children, all gone. The humans had asked for an investigation. They had asked politely, properly, through all the correct diplomatic channels. The council had voted, 32 species against, 15 in favor. The investigation was denied. Chitek had called it an unfortunate accident during routine military exercises. He had suggested the humans were being too emotional, too sensitive about the loss. After all, 200 lives were nothing compared to the billions that populated the galaxy. Jack Harris had been the human ambassador then. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much. He stood before the council after the vote and spoke quietly. His voice didn't shake. He didn't shout. That made his words more frightening somehow. "You mistake our patience for weakness," Harris had said. "You think because we negotiate, because we follow your rules, because we smile and shake your appendages, that we are soft. That ends today." Then he walked out. Every human in council space walked out with him. Within a week, humanity had sealed its borders. Within a month, they stopped answering communications entirely. At first, the council didn't worry. The Draxian representative, a massive reptilian named Korvax, had laughed. Let them sulk in their corner of space. They need us more than we need them. But now, 3 months later, no one was laughing. The Vrelnari intelligence officer, a small being named Pixtal, approached the podium nervously. She carried a data tablet that glowed with urgent red alerts. "Elder Zixtor, we have new information. The humans have been building something. We don't know what, but energy signatures are off the charts. They've constructed 7 massive installations in deep space. Our sensors can't penetrate them." "Weapons?" someone asked from the crowd. "We think so, but unlike any weapons we've seen before." Chitek clicked his mandibles dismissively. "Impossible. Human technology is primitive. They only joined galactic society 40 years ago. They are newcomers, barely past nuclear fusion." Zixtor felt old. He had lived for 600 years, seen countless species rise and fall, witnessed wars that burned entire star systems. Something about this situation felt wrong, dangerous. The humans weren't acting like other species did when offended. They weren't making threats. They weren't demanding attention. They were simply preparing. "We should send mediators," Zixtor suggested. "The Altheans are neutral. They could approach the humans, ask what they want." The council debated for hours. Some agreed. Others called it weakness. Korvax slammed his clawed fist on his desk. "We should fly a fleet to their borders and remind them who controls this galaxy. They are one species, we are many." Eventually, they agreed to send the Althean mediators. It was better than nothing. 3 days later, a small ship carrying Althean diplomats approached human space. The ship broadcast peace signals on every frequency. It carried no weapons. Its shields were down as a sign of good faith. A human patrol vessel intercepted them before they crossed the border. It was a small ship, barely the size of a courier craft. The human who appeared on their screen was young, a woman with short brown hair and sharp green eyes. Her uniform was crisp and clean. Her voice was polite but cold. "This is Lieutenant Katie Morgan of the Human Defense Force. You are approaching restricted space. Turn back." A lead Althean mediator, Vormaya, stepped forward. She was an elderly being, her silver skin marked with the wisdom patterns of her people. "Please, we only wish to talk. The Council wants to understand what humanity needs to end this silence." Katie Morgan's expression didn't change. "You had your chance for peace. You chose to ignore us when it mattered. When our people died, and we asked for justice, you voted it down. Now you want to talk? Now you want to understand? We can make this right," Vormaya pleaded. Katie was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I'm giving you something to take back to your council. A gift, so they understand what they're dealing with." A data package transmitted to the Althean ship. Then, Katie Morgan's image disappeared, and the human patrol ship vanished into faster-than-light travel, leaving the mediators alone at the border. When the Altheans returned to the council, they played the data package for everyone to see. It was a simulation, a tactical projection. It showed what would happen if humanity went to war with the Council. The numbers were staggering. Human forces moving through Council space like a storm. Advanced weapons tearing through traditional defenses. Coordination and tactics that seemed impossible for such a young species. According to the simulation, humanity could conquer the Council within 2 years. Most of the Council members laughed. They called it propaganda, human arrogance. But Zixthor noticed something that made his skin turn pale white. The simulation included weapons and tactics that weren't in any intelligence database. The humans showed attacks, using technologies the Council didn't even know existed. Either the humans were bluffing on a massive scale, or they had been hiding their true capabilities for 40 years. That night, Zixthor couldn't sleep. He kept replaying Jack Harris's final words in his mind. "You mistake our patience for weakness. What if the humans had never been weak? What if they had simply been waiting, watching, learning everything about the galaxy before revealing what they could really do?" The next morning brought worse news. 3 council species, led by the Kelthara, were assembling a military fleet. They planned to force humanity to negotiate by making a show of strength at the human border. Zixthor tried to stop them. He argued, pleaded, warned them, but fear made people stupid, and pride made them blind. The fleet would launch within the week. Somewhere in human space, humanity was waiting, and Zixthor suspected that the silence was about to end in the worst possible way. The military research station orbited Mars like a steel fortress, its angular surfaces reflecting the red planet's dusty glow. Inside the command center, Colonel Lisa Bennett watched construction crews finish the last components of Project Hellfire. Through the massive observation windows, she could see weapon platforms being assembled, each one carrying enough destructive power to crack a moon. Lisa was 43 years old, with black hair pulled back in a tight bun, and dark eyes that never seemed to blink. She had spent 20 years in the Human Defense Force, but the last year had changed everything. The galaxy had taught humanity a lesson. Now humanity was ready to teach one back. Admiral Greg Palmer entered the command center, his heavy boots echoing on the metal floor. He was a big man, with a gray beard and hands scarred from years of service. He had commanded fleets for 15 years, always hoping he would never need to use them in real war. That hope was dead now. Status report, Greg said, standing beside Lisa at the window. Hellfire is 96% complete. All 7 deep space installations are online. The relativistic missile batteries are loaded and targeted. The quantum mine networks are deployed along every approach vector to human space. AI warfare systems are active and awaiting authorization codes. Greg nodded slowly. And the fleet? Admiral, we have 300 warships ready for combat. Another 200 in reserve. Every ship is equipped with the new weapons. The crews are trained and eager. Lisa paused. Maybe too eager. They're angry. I don't blame them. Lisa thought about the frontier spirit. She had known some of the people on that ship. Good people. Families looking for a new home among the stars. They died because some alien general wanted to show off during military exercises, and the council decided human lives didn't matter enough to investigate. The door opened, and Captain Henry Cole walked in. He was tall and thin, with hollow eyes that hadn't slept properly in months. His wife and daughter had been on the frontier spirit. Now he commanded the Retribution, the largest dreadnought in the human fleet. He had volunteered to lead the first strike force. Admiral Palmer, Henry said quietly, my ship is ready, my crew is ready, just give the word. Greg looked at the broken man before him and felt a deep sadness. War turned good people into weapons. Soon, Captain, we're waiting to see if they send that fleet to our borders like intelligence suggests. They will, Henry said with certainty. They think we're afraid. They think we'll back down if they threaten us. They don't understand that we're past fear now. After Henry left, Lisa turned to Greg. Do you think we're doing the right thing? They killed our people and laughed about it. They denied us justice. They treated us like children who didn't deserve a voice. Greg's jaw tightened. We tried peace. We followed their rules, and it got 200 of our citizens murdered. So yes, Colonel, I think we're doing what we have to do. 3 days passed. Intelligence confirmed that the Kelthara, Draxian Empire, and Vorquin hegemony had formed an alliance. 300 warships were gathering at a staging point just outside Council space. The largest military force assembled in centuries, all aimed at humanity. The Council still didn't know about Jake Sullivan. He was a thin man with messy blonde hair, who looked more like a college professor than a military commander. But Jake had designed every trap, every ambush, every nasty surprise, waiting for the Council fleet. He worked from a hidden command station that didn't appear on any map, coordinating the defense of human space like a chess master setting up pieces. Jake watched the enemy fleet on his screens, tracking their every movement. He had evacuated the outer colonies weeks ago, moving civilians to safety deeper in human space. The aliens would find nothing but empty stations and silent planets. And mines. Lots of mines. They're moving, his tactical officer reported. The Council fleet just entered hyperspace. Estimated arrival at our border in 16 hours. Jake smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Good. Let them come. Lieutenant Morgan, are the autonomous systems ready? Katie Morgan, now promoted and serving as Jake's second-in-command, checked her displays. All weapon platforms are active, sir. The AI targeting systems are online. Relativistic missiles are spinning up to launch velocity. We're ready. Remind me again how fast those missiles move? 95% light speed, sir. The enemy sensors won't detect them until impact. By the time their computers register the threat, they'll already be dead. Jake nodded. The Council used plasma weapons and kinetic shields, technology that was thousands of years old and well understood. Humanity had looked at those systems and asked a simple question. What if we did something different? Relativistic missiles were simple. Accelerate a chunk of dense metal to near light speed and point it at a target. The impact released more energy than a nuclear weapon. No shields in the galaxy could stop something moving that fast. Quantum mines were even better. They existed in a state of superposition, phasing between dimensions until proximity sensors detected a target. Then they appeared inside the enemy ship and detonated. No armor could protect against a bomb that materialized in your reactor room. And the AI warfare systems were the part Jake was most proud of. The Council had banned artificial intelligence warfare, calling it too unstable and dangerous. Humanity had built it anyway, creating swarms of autonomous drones that learned and adapted faster than any organic crew could respond. The 16 hours passed slowly. Jake didn't sleep. He drank coffee and watched the Council fleet approach. 300 ships full of aliens who thought they could intimidate humanity into submission. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace exactly where Jake predicted. They appeared in the outer reaches of human territory, in a region that intelligence reports said was lightly defended. They were right. It was lightly defended by ships, but the space itself was a weapon. Captain Beth Anderson commanded the carrier Valiant from a position 10 light minutes away, hidden behind a moon. She was a woman in her 30s, with red hair and a calm demeanor that never broke, even in combat. Her ship carried no traditional weapons. Instead, its belly was full of AI drone fighters, thousands of them, waiting to be released. "Enemy fleet is spreading out," her sensor officer reported. "They're scanning for our ships." Beth watched the tactical display. The enemy was moving deeper into the trap. "Hold position. Wait for Sullivan's signal." On his hidden command station, Jake watched the Council fleet advance. They were confident, almost casual in their movements. They thought they were the predators here. "All systems," Jake said quietly. "Activate on my mark. 3, 2, 1, fire." Space erupted in violence. Relativistic missiles launched from hidden platforms, invisible until the moment they struck. The first wave of Council ships simply vanished, torn apart by impacts that released the energy of small stars. Armor meant nothing. The ships didn't explode so much as cease to exist. Quantum mines phased into reality inside dozens of vessels at once. Reactors detonated. Hulls breached. Thousands of aliens died before they understood what was happening. Beth Anderson released her drones. The AI swarms poured out of the Valiant like angry hornets, each one thinking and adapting independently. They overwhelmed the Council ship's targeting computers, attacking from every angle at once. The battle lasted 47 minutes. When it ended, 238 Council ships were destroyed or disabled. Only 62 escaped to hyperspace, most of them damaged and leaking atmosphere. Not a single human ship had fired a conventional weapon. Not a single human had died. Beth watched the fleeing ships on her sensors. "Cease fire. Let them go. Let them tell the Council what happened here." Jake Sullivan sat back in his command chair, suddenly exhausted. The trap had worked perfectly, but he felt no satisfaction, only a tired emptiness. This was just the beginning. The Council chamber was chaos. Representatives shouted at each other in 47 different languages, while translators struggled to keep up. Holographic displays showed the massacre on repeat. 300 ships reduced to wreckage in less than an hour. The images played over and over, burned into everyone's minds. Zixtor tried to maintain order, but his voice was lost in the noise. The Draxian General Korvax was screaming for war, his massive reptilian body shaking with rage. The Kelthara representatives huddled together, their usual confidence shattered. Smaller species were already talking about leaving the Council entirely. "Silence!" Zixtor finally roared, his voice amplified to painful levels. The chamber fell quiet. "We need to think clearly. Acting out of fear and pride is what brought us here." Korvax slammed his claws on his desk. "The humans attacked us. They destroyed a peacekeeping fleet. A peacekeeping fleet armed with weapons and positioned at their border," Zixtor countered. "We provoked this. We refused them justice for the frontier spirit. We ignored their demands. We sent warships to threaten them. What did you think would happen? They are one species against the entire council, and yet they crushed our fleet without losing a single ship. General, how exactly do you plan to win this war? Korvax had no answer. None of them did. The battle had revealed a terrifying truth. Human technology was not primitive. It was different, built on principles the Council had never considered or had actively banned. And it worked devastatingly well. The surviving ships had brought back recordings. Council military analysts studied them obsessively, trying to understand what had happened. The missiles moved too fast to intercept. The mines appeared from nowhere. The drone swarms learned and adapted in real time, finding weaknesses faster than any organic pilot could. One analyst, a Vrelnari named Tixcon, presented his findings to the Council. He was shaking as he spoke. The humans didn't just defeat us. They did it efficiently. Their weapons are designed to minimize their own casualties while maximizing ours. Every system works together perfectly. This wasn't luck. This was planning. Years of planning. How long? Someone asked. I think they've been preparing for this possibility since they joined the Council. 40 years. They watched us, learned our tactics, studied our technology. Then they built counters to everything we have. The implications settled over the chamber like a cold fog. Humanity had been preparing for war the entire time, just in case, and the Council had given them every reason to use those preparations. Deep in human space, Captain Henry Cole stood on the bridge of the Retribution. His ship was massive, a kilometer-long monster of metal and weapons. Around him, his crew worked quietly, efficiently. They were ready to kill for him, ready to die for him. It made Henry feel sick. His second officer, a young woman named Karen Phillips, approached with a datapad. Sir, we've received deployment orders. Admiral Palmer wants us on standby near the Kalthara border. Henry nodded, acknowledged, set course. Karen hesitated. Sir, may I speak freely? Always. The crew is eager, too eager. They want revenge for the frontier spirit. But I'm worried about what happens when they get it. Revenge doesn't bring people back. Henry thought about his wife's laugh, his daughter's smile, both gone forever. Karen was right. Revenge wouldn't resurrect them. But maybe it would stop the same thing from happening to other families. I know, Lieutenant, but we have a job to do. We finish it, then we figure out how to live with what we've done. Meanwhile, Katie Morgan had a different assignment. She was guarding prisoners from the first battle. 47 aliens had been captured from disabled ships. They were being held in a facility on one of Jupiter's moons, in cells that were clean and well-maintained. The prisoners expected torture. They expected execution. Instead, they got medical treatment for their injuries, decent food, and beds to sleep in. It confused them more than cruelty would have. Katie was doing her rounds when she heard crying from one of the cells. Inside, a young Kalthara named Zilteth sat with his head in his hands. He was barely an adult by his species standards, mandibles still soft and unmarked. Are you injured? Katie asked through the cell's speaker system. Zilteth looked up with multiple eyes full of tears. Why don't you just kill us? We would have killed you. Because we're not you, Katie said simply. We follow laws, even in war. We don't murder prisoners. We murdered you, the frontier spirit. It wasn't an accident. Katie went very still. What did you say? Zilteth was shaking now, words pouring out like he couldn't hold them in anymore. I was there. I was on one of the patrol ships. Our commanders ordered us to destroy the colony ship. They said it was a test, to see how humans would respond to aggression. They wanted to provoke you, to make you look weak when you complained to the Council. The room felt too small suddenly. Katie's hands clenched into fists. You're saying it was deliberate murder? All 200 people? Yes, and I've hated myself every day since. I tried to report it, but my superiors threatened to kill my family if I spoke. Then the war started, and I thought I deserved to die in it. But you don't even give me that mercy. You just keep us here, safe and fed, while I know what my people did to yours. Katie stood there for a long moment, processing this information. Then she turned and walked quickly to the communication center. This changed everything. If she could prove the attack was deliberate, ordered from the top, it would shift the entire political situation. She contacted Admiral Palmer directly. "Sir, I need to speak with you immediately. It's about the frontier spirit." An hour later, Katie was in a secure video call with Palmer, Lisa Bennett, and Jack Harris, who had been brought back as a special advisor. Zilteth sat beside her, repeating his confession while they recorded every word. Jack Harris listened with a face like stone. When Zilteth finished, Jack leaned back in his chair. "We can use this. If we expose the conspiracy, it will fracture the council. Some species will refuse to support the Kalthara. Public opinion will turn. We could broadcast it across the entire galaxy," Lisa suggested. "Yes," Jack agreed. "But we need more proof than one prisoner's testimony. We need documents, communication records, something that confirms this came from the top of Kalthara Command." Greg Palmer rubbed his beard thoughtfully. "Our intelligence people have been trying to crack Kalthara networks for weeks. If we give them this information, they'll know what to look for. It might take time, though." "How much time?" Jack asked. "Days, maybe a week." "We don't have a week," Lisa said. "Intelligence reports say the Draxian Empire is mobilizing their full military. They're calling in every alliance treaty they have. We could be facing thousands of ships." Katie spoke up from her station. "Then we need to move fast. Let me work with Zilteth. He might remember details, access codes, things that could help our hackers. In the meantime, we prepare for the worst. If the Draxians come at us with everything they have, we hit them harder than we hit the First Fleet. No mercy, no hesitation." The call ended. Katie looked at Zilteth, who was still shaking. "You're helping us now. You understand that makes you a traitor to your own people." "I was a traitor the moment I stayed silent about murder," Zilteth said quietly. "Maybe helping you is how I start making that right." They worked through the night, detailed plans to provoke humanity, and then dismissed their complaints as emotional overreaction. Names, dates, signatures, everything. Jack Harris held the data file like it was made of gold. "This is it. This proves everything. The Council will fracture when they see this. Some species will abandon the Kalthara entirely." "When do we release it?" Lisa asked. Jack smiled coldly. "Right before the Draxian fleet arrives at our borders. Let them see what they're really fighting for." 2 weeks after the first battle, humanity broke its silence in the most dramatic way possible. Every screen in Council space, on every world, in every ship, suddenly displayed the same image. Admiral Greg Palmer sat at a desk, with the human flag behind him. On his left stood Colonel Lisa Bennett. On his right, Ambassador Jack Harris had returned to service. Greg spoke with a calm, measured voice that somehow made his words more frightening. "People of the Galactic Council, we are humanity. For 3 months, we have remained silent while you wondered what we wanted. Today, we will tell you." Jack Harris stepped forward, holding a datapad. "First, the Kalthara government will surrender all individuals responsible for ordering the attack on the frontier spirit. They will stand trial under human jurisdiction for the murder of 200 civilians. We have proof that this attack was deliberate, planned, and authorized at the highest levels. This proof will be released to the public in 1 hour." Across Council space, the Kalthara representatives went pale. In a chamber on their homeworld, officials scrambled to contain the situation, but they already knew it was too late. Jack continued. "Second, the Council will formally recognize human sovereignty and territorial integrity. No Council ship will enter human space without explicit permission. Our borders will be respected absolutely. Third, reparations will be paid to the families of those killed. Each family will receive compensation according to human law, not Council standards. Lisa Bennett spoke next, her voice hard as steel. Fourth, the Council will establish an independent judiciary to handle disputes between species. Never again will a matter of justice be decided by political vote. Fifth, humanity demands permanent seats on all major Council committees with full voting rights. We will have equal voice in galactic affairs. Greg Palmer took over again. You have 30 standard days to comply with all 5 demands. Failure to meet this deadline will result in humanity taking what we are owed by force. We will not negotiate these terms. We will not compromise. You had 40 years to treat us as equals. You chose not to. Now you will learn the cost of that choice. The transmission ended. Exactly 1 hour later, as promised, the evidence was released. Documents, communication records, video files, everything that proved the Frontier Spirit massacre was deliberate murder. The data flooded every news network, every social media platform, every public forum in the galaxy. The reaction was immediate and explosive. On Vrelnari worlds, protests erupted within hours. Citizens marched in the streets, demanding the Council take responsibility. The Altheans, who prided themselves on peace and justice, withdrew from the Council entirely. Their representative, Vormaya, gave a speech that echoed across the galaxy. We cannot support an institution that votes to ignore murder. We cannot stand with those who kill civilians and call it an accident. The Council has lost its moral authority. We will not return until justice is served. Smaller species followed the Althean example. Within 3 days, 12 species had withdrawn from the Council or declared neutrality. Others began recognizing human sovereignty independently, hoping that friendship with humanity might protect them from larger predatory empires. The Council fractured along lines of fear and pride. Some wanted to negotiate immediately. Others saw the demands as humiliation that could not be tolerated. The Kalthara government was in chaos, with different factions blaming each other while the public demanded accountability. But the Draxian Empire refused to bend. General Korvax stood before what remained of the Council and roared his defiance. The humans dare to threaten us? They dare to make demands? We are the Draxian Empire. We have ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years. We will crush them and remind the galaxy who holds real power. Korvax had spent 2 weeks assembling forces. He called in every favor, every alliance treaty, every client species that owed the Draxians loyalty. His fleet grew to massive size, 1,200 warships, the largest military force gathered in recorded history. On the 20th day of humanity's ultimatum, the Draxian fleet jumped to hyperspace, headed directly for a human colony world called New Hope. Korvax planned to bypass the heavily defended borders and strike at civilians, just as he believed humans had no stomach for real war. He was wrong. Captain Henry Cole's fleet had been tracking the Draxian movements for days. Intelligence predicted their target. Henry positioned his ships along the only practical approach route to New Hope. His fleet was smaller, only 300 ships, but they carried the latest human weapons. The Retribution waited in silent running mode, all passive sensors only, nearly invisible in the darkness of space. Around Henry, his crew sat at their stations, with the calm of people who had accepted what was coming. Karen Phillips spoke quietly from the tactical station. Enemy fleet dropping out of hyperspace in 30 seconds. Henry nodded. All ships, weapons free on my command. Remember, protect the colony. Everything else is secondary. The Draxian fleet appeared in a flash of exotic particles, 1,200 ships, spreading out, in a formation that had worked for 3,000 years. Korvax sat on his flagship's bridge, confident and eager for blood. Then space lit up with human weapons fire. Relativistic missiles tore through Draxian shields like they weren't there. Quantum mines appeared inside ships, detonating reactors and ammunition stores. AI drone swarms overwhelmed point defense systems. The Draxians had numbers, but humans had technology that might as well have been magic. The battle was fierce and brutal. The Draxians learned quickly, adapted their tactics, concentrated their fire. They managed to destroy 17 human ships, the first human casualties of the war. But they paid for it with 300 ships of their own. Henry's ship took heavy damage. A Draxian plasma lance cut through the Retribution's port side, venting atmosphere and killing 40 crew members. Emergency klaxons screamed as fire suppression systems fought to contain the damage. Hull breach on decks 5 through 7, Karen reported, her voice steady despite the chaos. Reactor 2 is offline. Shield generators at 40%. Henry gripped his command chair. Keep firing. We hold this line. But the Draxians were desperate now. Korvax, seeing his fleet crumbling, made a decision born of rage and pride. He ordered his flagship to ram New Hope's orbital station. If he couldn't win the battle, he would at least kill thousands of human civilians. The massive ship turned, engines burning at full power, accelerating toward the station that housed 10,000 colonists. Warning sirens blared across the station as people scrambled for escape pods that would never launch in time. Captain Beth Anderson's carrier, the Valiant, had been holding position near the planet, her drone swarms engaged across the battlefield. She saw Korvax's ship turn, calculated the trajectory, and understood immediately what was happening. There was only one way to stop it. "All hands, this is the captain," Beth said calmly into the ship-wide intercom. "Brace for impact. It's been an honor serving with you." Her crew understood. No one questioned. No one hesitated. The Valiant's engines roared to life, pushing the carrier into an intercept course. The massive ship positioned itself directly between Korvax's flagship and the orbital station. Beth sat in her command chair and thought about her family back on Earth. She hoped they would understand why she had to do this. She hoped they would remember her as someone who did her duty to the end. The collision was catastrophic. Both ships exploded in a fireball visible from the planet's surface. 10,000 pieces of debris scattered across orbit. But the station survived, its hull scarred but intact. 10,000 civilians lived because one ship's crew gave their lives. The battle ended shortly after. The remaining Draxian ships, seeing their general dead and their fleet shattered, retreated in disorder. Human ships didn't pursue. They were too busy rescuing survivors and mourning their dead. Henry Cole stood on what remained of the Retribution's bridge, looking at the expanding debris field where the Valiant had died. He had known Beth Anderson for 15 years. She had been at his wedding. She had held his daughter when she was born. Karen Phillips was crying quietly at her station. Across the fleet, every human ship fell silent in honor of the Valiant's sacrifice. The battle was broadcast live across the galaxy. Every species watched as human and Draxian ships died. They watched as Korvax tried to murder civilians. They watched as Beth Anderson's ship sacrificed itself to save thousands of lives. The Draxian Empire found itself isolated, its allies abandoning it. Even species that had supported the Council against humanity now questioned their position. How could they stand with those who targeted civilians deliberately? On the Kelthara homeworld, the government collapsed within hours. Reformists seized power in a bloodless coup. Their first act was to arrest the military commanders who had ordered the Frontier Spirit attack. Their second act was to contact humanity and accept all 5 demands unconditionally. The memorial service for the valiant was held 3 days after the battle. Every human ship in the fleet gathered in formation around New Hope, their running lights dimmed in respect. On the planet's surface, 10,000 colonists stood in silence, watching the sky where brave people had died to save them. Captain Henry Cole stood at the memorial podium wearing his dress uniform, medals he had never wanted weighing heavy on his chest. He was supposed to give a speech, but words felt meaningless in the face of such sacrifice. Finally, he spoke, his voice quiet, but carried by speakers across the fleet. Captain Beth Anderson and her crew knew what they were doing. They saw civilians in danger and didn't hesitate. They didn't ask for permission. They didn't calculate odds. They simply did what needed to be done. Henry paused, struggling to continue. War makes us forget that courage isn't about wanting to fight. It's about being willing to sacrifice for others. The Valiant's crew remembered that when it mattered most. Across the fleet, ships fired their weapons into empty space, a military salute for the fallen. Then, silence returned, heavy and sad. While humans mourned, the galaxy was changing. The Kelthara's new government worked frantically to meet humanity's demands. They arrested 17 high-ranking military officers, including 3 generals who had authorized the Frontier Spirit attack. They transferred the prisoners to human custody within 48 hours. The trials would be held on Earth, broadcast live across the galaxy. Human courts would decide the punishment for alien murderers, something that had never happened before. It sent a message that resonated everywhere. Humanity would have justice, one way or another. Other council species scrambled to recognize human sovereignty. Formal documents arrived at human embassies daily, each one acknowledging human territorial rights and requesting renewed diplomatic relations. The species that had once dismissed humanity as newcomers now begged for their friendship. But the Draxian Empire remained defiant. What was left of their military regrouped at their home systems, preparing for humanity's inevitable retaliation. Korvax was dead, but other generals stepped forward, determined to restore Draxian pride through warfare. Zixthor watched all of this with a heavy heart. The council he had served for 600 years was dying. More than half of member species had withdrawn or declared neutrality. Those remaining were divided between hawks who wanted continued war and doves who wanted peace at any price. On the 28th day of humanity's ultimatum, Zixthor called an emergency session. When the remaining representatives gathered, he stood before them with skin turned pale white, a sign of deep distress among his people. The old council is dead, he announced. Whether we acknowledge it or not, the institution we built has failed. It failed to provide justice. It failed to prevent war. It failed in its most basic purpose of keeping peace among species. He paused, letting his words sink in. I propose we dissolve the Galactic Council entirely and create something new. A galactic assembly where all species have equal voice, where justice is not decided by politics, where humanity and every other species can participate as true equals. The chamber erupted in argument. Some called it surrender. Others called it wisdom. The debate raged for hours until finally, exhausted and facing the reality of their situation, the council voted. 23 in favor, 11 against. The Galactic Council officially dissolved itself. Zixthor transmitted the news to humanity immediately. Along with it came a formal invitation to join the founding committee of the new Galactic Assembly. The invitation included acceptance of all 5 human demands and a proposal for a peace treaty. In his office on Mars, Admiral Greg Palmer read the transmission with Jack Harris and Lisa Bennett standing beside him. They looked at each other. years of anger and pain visible in their eyes. "Is it enough?" Lisa asked quietly. Jack rubbed his tired face. "We got everything we demanded. The Kelthara commanders will stand trial. Our sovereignty is recognized. The reparations are being processed. And we have equal voice in galactic politics now. It's more than I expected when this started." "But the Draxians are still out there," Greg noted. "They're preparing for another attack." "Let them come," Jack said. "We've proven we can defend ourselves. And if they attack again, we won't be the only ones fighting. Half the galaxy will stand with us now." Greg nodded slowly. "All right, we accept the peace treaty. But we keep our fleets ready. Trust is earned, not given." The peace treaty was signed on a neutral world called Sanctuary Prime, chosen because it had remained neutral throughout the war. The ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy, showing representatives from 40 species, including humans, signing the founding charter of the Galactic Assembly. Jack Harris represented humanity at the signing. He wore a simple suit, not a military uniform, sending a deliberate message that humanity came in peace, but could always return to war if necessary. When he signed the charter, he thought about the frontier spirit, about Beth Anderson, about all the lives lost to get to this moment. Beside him stood Vormaya, the Althean mediator who had first tried to reach humanity during the silence. She had worked tirelessly to build the new assembly, using her species' reputation for fairness to bring reluctant parties together. "We have a long road ahead," Vormaya said softly to Jack. "Building trust after a war is harder than fighting it." "I know," Jack replied. "But we're here. That's something." After the ceremony, Jack walked through the memorial gardens being constructed at Sanctuary Prime. The garden would hold the names of everyone who died in the war, both human and alien. He found the section dedicated to the frontier spirit victims, and placed his hand on the stone, feeling the carved letters under his fingers. A young Kelthara approached hesitantly. It was Zilteth, the prisoner who had revealed the truth about the frontier spirit attack. He had been granted asylum by the new human Kelthara government, and now worked as a translator and cultural liaison. "Ambassador Harris," Zilteth said quietly, "I wanted to thank you for letting me help, for giving me a chance to make things right." Jack looked at the young alien who had risked everything to tell the truth. "You did more than help. You gave us the proof we needed. A lot of people are alive because of you. But many died too, on both sides. Yes, war always costs more than anyone expects." Jack gestured at the memorial stones. "We build these to remember the price, so we don't forget why peace matters." They stood together in silence, human and Kelthara, former enemies finding common ground in shared grief. Meanwhile, back in human space, Katie Morgan received orders for a new assignment. She would command a patrol ship on the border between human and council space, helping enforce the new peace treaty. Before leaving, she visited Zilteth's old cell, now empty, and thought about how one conversation with a scared prisoner had helped change the course of the war. Captain Henry Cole retired from active service. He couldn't command ships anymore. Couldn't give orders that sent people to die. Instead, he accepted a position teaching at the Naval Academy, training the next generation of officers. He told them stories about the retribution, about the valiant, about the price of war and the value of peace. His son, who had served on a different ship during the war, visited him often. They talked about the past, about the future, about the mother and sister they had lost. Slowly, painfully, they began to heal. Lisa Bennett took command of the new Defense Coordination Office, overseeing human military forces as they transitioned from wartime footing to peacetime readiness. She never forgot the lessons learned. Human ships continued to patrol borders. The galaxy had learned not to underestimate humanity, and humanity had learned never to be unprepared again. Jake Sullivan returned to civilian life, taking a position at a university where he taught strategic planning to students who had never seen war. He told them that the best victory was the one you never had to fight, but you could only avoid fighting if everyone knew you could win. 6 months after the treaty signing, a human colony ship called the New Dawn launched toward unexplored space. It carried families looking for new homes, scientists seeking new discoveries, and children who would grow up in a galaxy where humanity was respected as equals. On the bridge, the captain watched the stars and thought about the future. Humanity had earned its place among the galactic community, not through submission, but through strength, tempered with mercy. They had shown they could fight viciously when pushed, but could also show restraint and honor in victory. The galaxy would never underestimate them again. More importantly, humanity would never forget the cost of being underestimated. The weapons remained ready. The fleet stayed alert, but humanity also extended its hand in friendship to those willing to take it. Back on Earth, in a quiet cemetery, flowers were placed on new graves. Families visited loved ones lost in the war, telling them stories, sharing memories, making sure they were not forgotten. Among those graves was a special memorial for the crew of the Valiant, heroes who gave everything so others could live. A little girl, daughter of one of the Valiant's crew members, placed a flower on the stone. Her mother knelt beside her, explaining that Mommy had been very brave, that she had saved many people, that she would always be remembered. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Humans don't seek war. They prefer peace, cooperation, and mutual respect. But when pushed, when their people are killed and justice is denied, when patience is mistaken for weakness, humans don't back down. They don't lose. And now, with peace established and humanity's place secured, the real work began, building trust, maintaining vigilance, creating a future where the mistakes of the past would not be repeated. It wouldn't be easy. It might take generations, but humanity had proven they could handle difficult things. The New Dawn accelerated toward the stars, carrying hope into the unknown. Behind it, the galaxy watched and learned. Ahead of it, infinite possibilities waited. And somewhere in between, humanity stood ready for whatever came next.